Hello everybody and welcome back to Teachers Talk Money, where I help teachers master their money in order to give back to themselves. Please excuse my voice. I'm recovering from a little bit of a cold. I feel totally fine now, but the effects on my voice have lingered. Today we're going to be going through my October 2021 net worth update, and I'm really excited for this one because we're finally getting in the groove of being in school for multiple months now and getting that consistent income, that consistent paycheck from working. Coming off of summer when I was living off of my savings and had to make a huge purchase of a used car, to replace my old one. My net worth decreased drastically in the months of July and August, and it increased slightly in September, but it really was kind of an underwhelming month. But now we're finally getting into the groove of things, and I was actually able to see a little bit of growth this month in my investments and my savings. So as always, let's break it down into each and every one of my accounts so you can see how all of these things combine to total up my net worth. I've described this a couple times, but your net worth is essentially all of the money that you have to your name minus any debts or liabilities you have. I have been debt-free for the past few years, ever since my first year teaching, when I was able to pay off all of my student loans. And so for me, adding up my net worth is as simple as totaling all of the different values of my accounts. So let's get started going through those. My first account we're going to look at is my Roth IRA. This is one of my investment accounts. This is one that I have individually, meaning it is not tied to my employer at all. Currently, the value of my Roth IRA is $17,792. This is up $248 from last month, and that is all the interest that the money itself has earned. I did not contribute anything to my Roth IRA this month. If you've been following along for a while, you know that for 2021, I've already reached the limit of how much you can deposit into your Roth IRA, which is $6,000. I was able to meet that really early on in the year because I received several stipends from my sort of extra positions around the school, being a coach and the newspaper sponsor, and with stimulus checks that I was partially able to deposit in this, and tax refunds and things like that. I was very fortunate to be able to max it out early on, so I haven't contributed anything to this in months. So all of that growth, that $248, was totally passive. Now let's take a look at my 457B. This is the investment account that is tied to my employer. So this is a benefit of my employer. If you're interested in the difference between a 457B and a 403B, or between those type of employer-sponsored accounts and Roth IRAs or other individual retirement accounts, I will link a video down in the description of this video that kind of explains what those different accounts are and who has access to them. My 457B is currently valued at $13,672, and that has increased by $631 since I last collected these numbers for my net worth. Now, a lot of that is that stuff that I have contributed. So out of my paycheck, $475 went into my 457B. So not all of it was passive, but I did earn $156 of passive income. Then we have my pension account. Now, I talk about this in every video because my pension account does earn interest, but I do not have access to that interest until I have taught for 10 years. At that point, all of the contributions and interest are available to me to withdraw should I leave my district. But until that point, all that I have access to, should I leave my district, is the contributions. So for now, all I am tracking is the contributions. When I get to the point that I've been in my district teaching for 10 years, at that point, I will start including the interest in my net worth because I'll actually be entitled to it then. So currently my pension is valued at $11,240 for a total change of $209, and all of that $209 was contributed from my paycheck. Then I have a small supplemental pension that is just through my county specifically. That only updates once a year, so I do count it in my net worth, but it doesn't actually change month to month. It just updates over the summer. So that is currently valued at $798. And it will be valued at that until June or July next year. So those are all of my investment accounts. Now let's take a look at my savings accounts. My biggest savings account is my emergency fund. Fortunately, I have not had to withdraw any money from my emergency fund in quite some time. Thank goodness I haven't had any emergencies come up. So that is currently valued at $5,041, and that just grew $2 in the small amount of interest that I get through that account since last month. Then we have my other savings. This includes all of my sinking funds. This is money that's in my savings, but all of these savings are really there to eventually be spent. So while I deposit a lot of money to my savings each and every month, I may pull some money. So should I buy a gift or pay for a grad school class or take a trip and have to withdraw from my travel fund or anything of that nature. So these are kind of constantly fluctuating throughout the month as I deposit money into them and then sometimes spend some money. Currently, all of these accounts together are worth $2,591, and that is up $588 from last month. So here we have all of my totals, and as you can see, these add up to $51,134. So I have finally recrossed that 50K mark. I had already passed that 50K mark, I think in June this past year, but because I had to purchase a car and I had a really costly move from my last apartment to this one all over the summer, and I was living off of my savings, it dipped far below that pretty swiftly. So now I think I'm at the same place I was in like July of 2021. So bringing it on back up, which is good. This month, my net worth increased by $1,678, which is pretty consistent with how much it increased in October last year. So that's good that those kind of patterns are starting to emerge and being pretty consistent. And my year-to-date change is $14,969. Last year, in all of 2020, my net worth had grown by over $20,000. My goal this year was to grow it by over $30,000, and I definitely don't think I'm going to get there based on these numbers. Seeing as I'm just reaching that 15K mark, it would be pretty awesome if I could even have it increase by 20K again. This is just the nature of having to make the big purchase of a car over the summer, and so it's nothing that I'm disappointed about because everything's going according to plan and I had that money saved in order to spend it. But I do have to kind of adjust those pretty audacious goals that I had set. To give a little bit of context, I also want to show my totals each year for October. This is pretty cool. This is something I've only recently been able to do because I started tracking my net worth consistently monthly in September of 2019. And so I really wasn't able to make these really broad year-to-year comparisons until last month. So as you can see, in October 2019, my net worth was around $13,000. In October 2020, it was around $32,000. And for October 2021, we're at $51,134. So this shows some very consistent growth. It grew by about $19,000 between 2019 and 2020, and by slightly more from 2020 to 2021. I am really pleased that this is consistent. I'm feeling a little bit anxious to get to the point in my net worth growth where the rate really starts to pick up. So not just am I seeing the amounts consistently increase, but actually seeing the rate of that happening increase as well, which I'm hopeful to start seeing soon. The more and more money that I have invested that's making up my net worth, the more and more passive income is growing on top of my contributions. So, still not seeing that, but I'm not disappointed at all. Everything is going pretty much according to plan. Speaking of passive income, let's check out my totals for this month and year to date. So in September, I actually lost about $96 in my investments, but quickly made up for that this month, which saw an increase of $404. For the entire year, this is an increase of $3,714. So even though you can see there are a couple months in there that were lower gains or I actually lost money, all things considered, for this entire year, I've basically made an extra $3,714. And the beautiful thing about that is that means it's almost as if I have invested that extra $3,700 on top of what I have actively invested, except I didn't actually have to take that money out of my income. That's the beautiful thing about investing, and that's why it's really important to start learning about it, because the earlier you start, the more potential that interest has to grow interest on top of itself, and so on and so forth, otherwise known as compound interest. Now, in order to just give you all a little bit more of a visual representation of these numbers, let's take a look at my graph, which is one of my favorite things because it shows my net worth since I first consistently started tracking it over 2 years ago. Now, this graph shows a couple consistent patterns so far, namely that my net worth does consistently increase month to month. And it also shows 2 significant dips in my net worth, both over the summer months when I actually spend my savings essentially using them as income to live off of in those months. And that is because those summers since I started consistently tracking my net worth are the only summers I have ever taken off in my entire adult life. So we definitely see the detrimental effect it has on my net worth. However, it has such a net positive effect on my life that it is a very worthwhile trade-off, and I feel really, really privileged and grateful to be able to be in a position where I actually can take off during the summers, because I truly have not done that since high school. And as I mentioned, making the purchase of getting another used car this past summer really made that dip even more drastic. So now we're at the point where I'm kind of slowly recovering from that in my net worth. And like I said, I'm basically back to the place I was in really May of this year. So it's taking me a couple months to recover that. As you can see from the previous dip, that summer prior to last summer, it took me until about November to recover. So making some good progress here for October. I don't think I'll be fully recovered from this dip in November because at the peak my net worth was $57,000 in June, and there's really no way that I'm about to grow it by like $6,000 in the next month. That being said, I am excited to start making progress in that direction, and I may be able to recover it to where it was in July by December, because December is a 3 paycheck month. Now, the last one I think comes on like one of the last days of December, so I don't think it'll be reflected in that net worth update, but by the beginning of January, and by my January net worth update, we might be there, fingers crossed. I'm actually expecting to see a lot of accelerated growth at the start of 2022, because I will actually have reached the next lane on the salary scale at that point, so that will be effective. And early on in the year is when I actually early on in the calendar year is when I actually receive my stipends, usually in like May and June. So in that first half of the calendar year, I see a lot of skyrocketing because of the things that I've been doing throughout the year, coaching and sponsoring school newspaper. So I hope you all enjoyed this net worth update. In terms of my personal reflection on this month, I just feel good that I'm back to a place of steady growth. The dip over the summer was a little bit psychologically difficult, but for the most part, everything's been going to plan, and I always just feel really grateful to not have to take on extra debt and to actually see my money working for me in terms of my investments growing and earning money on top of themselves. I feel really, really grateful to pass that 50K mark again. I feel like I'm at a place where these numbers start looking really real and really sort of big to me in a way. Like, I don't think if you told me when I was a teenager that I would have $50,000 to my name that I would have even believed you, because that is kind of how out of this world that seems to me. But knowing what I know now about personal finance and really sort of getting that financial self-education that I have gotten over this time, these start to seem less like super out of this universe goals and more like inevitabilities of sticking to a plan and fortunately not having any big emergencies befall me up until this point. I hope you enjoyed watching this video or learned something from it. As always, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you like more content like this. Have an amazing day, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!